Storyteller. Dear viewers, in this series we present short stories in simple English. You hear these stories while you may read them on the screen. The writer's name is at the end of each story. Please click on like, share, and subscribe if you find the contents to your liking. We look forward to your valuable comments. And here we go with one. Beyond the bend. The early morning mist was still around when I decided to go out for a walk along the hilly road. Before reaching the gate of the guest house, I noticed two human figures standing near the edge of the terrace, just above a slope which had gone down to a meandering hilly track below. They were silent and apparently looking ahead towards the vastness in front. Both were dressed in blackish warm clothes and had nothing in particular to draw a special attention. I walked past them, and through the open side gate I moved out of the guest house compound. A grey jungle fowl, which had ventured out of the wild shrubs, was panicked to see me and made a quick retreat to vanish into the greenery. I stopped and waited for another glimpse of the little beauty, but the grace was not repeated. It was more than an hour when I returned to the guest house. The beauty around and the tranquility throughout my lonely walk amidst the greenery decorated with bright red rhododendrons left me in a sort of trance. The sun was just up, and the distant snowy peaks were bathing in the early rays, while their look went on changing as they wore different hues. As I walked into the compound, my attention was drawn to the two human figures, being still in the same place, but now they were sitting there on the grassy surface, while looking ahead silently as before. Sitting in the dining hall for a hot, refreshing cup of tea, I could gather from the attendants that only a handful of visitors were here at this time of the year. So, the guest house at Kirshu in Pauri Garhwal offered a sort of coziness to the ones like me who prefer to spend some time enjoying the nature away from the humdrums of daily chores. Even as I sipped the tea, the glistening peaks in full glory being seen through the large glass panels left me spellbound. After a wash and a quick breakfast, I went out with my photography kit to visit the nearby areas in my hired cab. I was a little surprised to notice the two human beings still there in the same position like before, with the only change that now they had their head covers removed and I could see their side faces. It was a couple, presumably husband and wife, and they looked to be hardly in their 30s. The day passed in my satisfactory enterprise involving viewing of nature as also of having a taste of the local village life, besides using my skill of photography as an amateur. I had a plan to stay here the next day also to complete my left out job. In the evening, I sat with a writing assignment, and after a session, I decided to continue after having my dinner. So, I finished rather an early dinner in the dining hall, and as I was climbing up the stairs to reach my room on the first floor, I heard some footsteps above. Obviously, some persons were coming down. Presently, I saw a couple in their woolens. From the outline of their faces, I could make out that they were the ones whom I had seen in the morning. The lady was bespectacled, but both were looked firm and steady as their youth demanded. What happened next was both painful and dramatic. The lady must have missed a step and lost her balance. She just flew down the few steps to fall on me and then rolled down to the base of the stairs. The impact unbalanced me, and I too fell back to hit the side wall and dropped on the stairs clumsily. The bemused husband took a second or two to grasp the reality of the sudden happening and then, with a loud interjection, ran down the stairs. He held my hand to pull me up and then ran to his wife to help her. The tumult drew the attention of some guest house employees who came running. As desired by the couple, the lady was helped to get back to their room on the first floor. She had sprained her ankle badly and somehow limped back to her bed with the assistance of others. Though I felt a pain on the back of my head and my fingers found a swelling there, I chose to ignore my hurt and walked behind the group. I saw that the couple had their room very near mine. In spite of her severe pain, the lady repeatedly expressed her deep regret for having caused me a great discomfort and wanted to know if I had been hurt in any way. The husband looked highly embarrassed and came forward with outstretched hands to hold mine. He requested me to sit in a chair while he could settle the things. The helpers were thanked profusely and sent back with the instruction of serving the simple dinner in the room along with two flasks of hot water. He said that he had the first aid kit and would need no medical help now. In case of any future necessity, he would ask for accordingly. I felt they needed a privacy to do the needful, and I also had to take care of myself. So I withdrew with a few words of courtesy, promising a detailed introduction the next morning. Both of them expressed great regret and insisted that, in case of any necessity, I shouldn't hesitate to call them. After taking an analgesic tablet from my emergency kit, I finished a few urgent things and went to bed early. As usual, I got up at dawn and came out to sit in the balcony. The chill in the air called for enough woolens. The mist did not allow a clear view of the distant peaks, but the greenery around, along with the musical calls of the birds, some of whom were hopping or flying around, created a mesmerizing environment. My aching body did not encourage me to go for a walk like the previous day, and I tried to make the most of whatever I could savor of the nature's offerings. Good morning. My musing was broken by a female voice and I turned to see the injured lady with her husband helping her to a chair. Usual pleasantries were exchanged, but I noticed that the lady had a crepe bandage on her foot and her limping indicated her injury to be grave enough. I felt very sorry for the poor victim of a little unmindfulness causing all this and even involving me. Now I formally met Deepak and Latika Verma. Deepak, an eye surgeon, and Latika, a lecturer in botany. They were from Delhi and were much younger than me. Please feel free to a medical man. Did you have any kind of problem last night? Deepak asked me straightway. Well, it's there. I pointed to the back of my head. But it's quite okay now. Her heart. I could not complete as Deepak quickly grabbed my head to examine the injury and then said, Oh God, you didn't say a thing. You needed immediate help then. There's a bruise and swelling. Latika gave out a sorrowful expression while Deepak went back to their room and came out with the bag. As we continued with our short exchanges, Deepak attended to my injury. When I grimaced a little in pain, he said, That shows you are not totally insensitive. All three of us laughed together. He instructed me not to disturb the medicated adhesive strip for a day, to keep it dry, and gave me 3 tablets to be taken through the day. The snowy peaks had turned golden by now and were already calling me. I got up to be ready to move out with my photography kit after my breakfast. I felt bad that the Verma couple would not be able to go out today. When I returned at lunchtime, I was somewhat surprised to see that they had been sitting in the same place as in the previous day and silently looking ahead. The sound of my cab did not attract their attention. I waited for a few seconds and then proceeded to the dining hall without disturbing them. In the evening, I saw them sitting in the balcony where we had sat in the morning. I approached them softly and they welcomed me warmly. We asked the room service attendant for some tea and he readily obliged. Somehow I started liking the decent young couple and they also seemed to be quite comfortable with me. In spite of all their warmth and decency in approach, I didn't fail to notice a deep moroseness in both of them, and particularly in Latika. It was a personal matter, and a query might be unwise. At last, brushing aside my hesitation, I asked Deepak in a soft voice, Please excuse my inquisitiveness, and you may ignore it if you like. I noticed the two of you sitting or standing in a particular spot of the terrace, silently and for long. Even today, in spite of her discomfort, is there anything particular there? Latika looked at the floor silently. Deepak looked at me. His eyes expressed a great pain inside. Did I hit a wrong chord? I am sorry if I have hurt you in any way, I said. No, no, there's nothing wrong from your side. Yes, indeed, we like to be there. Actually, Deepak stopped with a sigh. Then, as if after a little dithering, he brought out a photograph from a folder and gently handed to me. It was of a small child with its back to the camera and had both hands raised with outstretched fingers as if waving to the golden peaks that lay beyond in the horizon. Just on the left of the child was a blooming cherry tree, and I could immediately identify the spot of the terrace. Yes, it was indeed the very spot where I had seen Deepak and Latika. The last photograph that we have, said Deepak in a tearful voice. I couldn't utter a word, but looked at Deepak with 100 questions in my eyes. After a pause, he spoke at length. What unfolded slowly in front of me was a tragic account in the life of the young couple. 2 years ago, Deepak had come to Kirshu for the first time in his own car. His wife and son had accompanied him. The 2.5-year-old was a coveted boon in their life and kept them busy throughout the waking hours. Zatika had to adjust her professional work to be at home as long as possible. Their stay at Kirshu was highly enjoyable in every way. The vast expanse of nature had cast a magic spell even on the little enthusiast. He learned words like peak, cherry, snow, etc., and went on babbling. The highly active Gullu proved to be an entertainer to most of the people in the guest house, and when they were departing after a 2 day visit, a host of people were around to bid him goodbye. Gulu spoke to everyone individually, and just before getting into the car, he ran to stand near the cherry tree to bid goodbye to the peaks gleaming in the morning sun. The father pressed the shutter of his camera before guiding the son into the car. Deepak was accustomed to driving his small car in the hilly roads, and they were having a comfortable ride with a few vehicles coming up from the opposite direction. But just after a sharp bend, Deepak saw a loaded truck coming, and he quickly swerved to the left to almost graze past the stony wall of the hill to make way for the truck. The truck went past them, but Deepak felt that a tire of his car had got deflated. He had to take the car to the small roadside clearing for replacing the wheel with the stepney. Latika was sitting in the rear seat with her son, and she became worried about the safety of her husband at work even as vehicles were passing from both sides. Seeing that Gulu was falling asleep, she got down, leaving the kid comfortable in the rear seat, and locked the door. As Deepak was adjusting the jack, Latika stooped over to help him. Suddenly, she heard a faint click. Before she could comprehend, the front door on the right of the car was opened and Gulu jumped out on the road. Surely the door hadn't been closed properly, and now the car being tilted a little, the door opened easily. Just then, the sound of an approaching vehicle panicked Latika, and with a scream, she ran after the kid on the road. The son thought it to be a great fun to make his mother run behind him. In a moment, a large Isuzu car appeared at the bend, and seeing Latika in the middle of the road, it screeched to a dead halt with a loud squeak. Latika ran madly. The child had crossed over to the other side of the road. Deepak got up to look, and grasping the situation, he too ran while shouting. But where was Gulu? There was no sight of him. The deep gorge on the roadside looked as before. There was no large commotion in the deep forest of the pines, deodars, and various other vegetations that ran down from the roadside to the great depth of the gorge. The heart-breaking screams of the mother and the loud yells of the father drew no response from anywhere. Nature looked completely unperturbed as the breeze blew through the leaves, raising the rustle as usual. The birds, crickets, and other insects continued with their natural calls and cries. The furious occupants of the Isuzu came out shouting, and on realizing the actual situation, joined to help the couple to find the trace of the disappeared kid. Latika dropped on the road unconscious. With arrival of more vehicles, enthusiastic endeavors were made. Eventually, the police arrived. Some locals joined in the difficult search, which became extensive, and it was carried out for a few days. But Gulu proved to be too tiny to reach the range of human vision and remained ever elusive. I felt a stunning sensation as the depiction made me visualize the scenes, and I sat without a word. I could as if hear the heart-wrenching cry of the mother, "Come back! Come back!" reverberating from heel to heel. Deepak's voice reached my ears. We came here last year also. Sitting near the cherry tree brings a strange feeling of Gullu being very near to us, as if he would show up ending his hide and seek game. I know there's no logic, but terribly shocked and bereaved young parents looking for solace? Has logic any part to play here for them? I wondered. In spite of all efforts, the memory of that visit of mine to Kirshu had an irremovable tinge of bitterness, and whenever the faces of the lovely couple crossed my mind, I could not but feel a pain in my heart. About 3 years passed after that visit. I was in Delhi again for a few days. In front of the National War Memorial, I heard a call and looked back. The Burma couple, and lo, a tiny, sprightly girl capering around the cheerful parents. The chat followed was brief because they were in great hurry, but the way the Pock hugged me gave me a feeling of his warmth. I thanked heavens for the divine gift they had now and prayed for her long life. I stopped Latika from touching my knees and wished them all well. We exchanged contact numbers with promise of future meet. And as I looked at their receding figures while they hurried towards the parking space at a distance, I felt a kind of unknown happiness in my heart. Kirshu, with all its natural glory, was calling me once again. Thank you for watching.